You want to know about the eye? You think it's a pirate story, a bar fight, a piece of shrapnel from a lucky grenade? The voice was low, rasping like a rusty saw cutting through oak. It came from the corner of the barracks, where the shadows were deepest. 77-year-old Silas Thorne sat in his usual chair, polishing his boots. The rain was hammering against the tin roof of the barracks, a relentless, rhythmic drumming that had kept the platoon awake for hours. Thunder rumbled in the distance, shaking the window panes. It was the kind of night that loosened tongues and made young men brave enough to ask questions they should probably keep to themselves. If you've ever wondered what true sacrifice looks like, or if you believe that some stories are too heavy to carry alone, hit that like button. If you respect the warriors who left pieces of themselves on the battlefield so we could sleep soundly tonight, comment honor below. Because tonight, a group of fresh-faced recruits is about to learn that a scar isn't just a mark on the skin. It's a receipt for a price paid in full. Private Joker Jacobs was the one who asked. He was the platoon clown, the one who always pushed the line. He had been staring at Silas's black eye patch for weeks. It was a piece of leather, worn smooth by time, held in place by a thin cord. "Come on, Pops," Jacobs pressed, leaning off his bunk. "The rumor mill says you lost it to a tiger, or maybe a jealous husband. Give us the truth. We're shipping out in 2 weeks. We deserve to know who's teaching us." Silas stopped polishing. He slowly set the boot down. He picked up the rag and wiped his single gray eye. He looked at Jacobs, then he looked around the room. 20 recruits were awake, feigning disinterest but listening intently. The rain intensified, sounding like static. "You deserve to know," Silas repeated, his voice devoid of humor. "You don't deserve anything, Private. You earn it, but since you asked, turn off the lights." The room went black, save for the occasional flash of lightning that illuminated Silas's face, making the scars look like canyons on a map. "It wasn't a tiger," Silas whispered, "and it wasn't a husband. It was a ghost. We called him the Architect." "The Architect?" a voice whispered from the top bunk. "Because he built cemeteries," Silas said. "He was a North Vietnamese sniper. Operate in the A Shau Valley, Hill 484, 1969. The place didn't have a name, just a number. It was a meat grinder. We were sent up to take the hill, but we couldn't move. Every time a lieutenant stood up, he dropped. Every time a radio operator keyed his mic, he dropped. This guy, he was good. He was surgical. He didn't shoot to kill immediately. He shot to wound. He'd put a round in a man's gut, listen to him scream and wait for the medic. Then he'd take the medic." Silas leaned forward, the lightning catching the grim set of his jaw. "I was a sniper, too. 1st Marine Division. My spotter, a kid named Billy, he was 19 from Arkansas. We were sent out to hunt the hunter. It's called a counter-sniper mission. It's the loneliest job in the war. You aren't fighting an army. You're fighting one man who thinks exactly like you." We crawled out at 200 hours, pitch black, raining, just like this. We moved 300 yards in 4 hours. You move an inch, you listen. You move another inch, you smell the air. If a bird stops singing, you freeze. If the wind changes, you freeze. We found a hide in a cluster of rocks overlooking the valley. And we waited. "Day 1, Silas said, holding up a finger. "Nothing. The heat was 105 degrees. The humidity was 100%. The bugs were eating us alive. Ants, mosquitoes, leeches. You don't swat them. You don't move. If you twitch, you die. We urinated in our pants. We baked in the sun. We watched the green wall of the jungle through our optics until our eyes bled. We knew he was out there. We could feel him. It's a pressure on the back of your neck, a cold spot in the heat." Day 2, Silas continued. "Billy made a mistake, a small one. He shifted his weight to get a sip of water. His canteen clinked against a rock. It wasn't loud, just a tink. But in that silence, It sounded like a church bell. Silas paused. He took a deep breath, his chest rattling slightly. The shot came from nowhere. No muzzle flash. No sound because the bullet moves faster than sound. Billy's head just snapped back. The architect didn't kill him. He put a round through Billy's neck. Paralyzed him. Billy couldn't talk, couldn't move. He just lay there, bleeding, looking at me with these wide, terrified eyes. The blood was pooling under us. The barracks was deathly silent. The recruits had stopped moving. Jacobs was sitting up, his mouth slightly open. "I couldn't help him," Silas whispered. "That was the trap. The architect was waiting for me to try and patch him up. If I moved to help Billy, I took a bullet. If I stayed still, I watched my friend die. So I stayed still. I lay next to my dying brother for 6 hours. I held his hand under the dirt so the sniper couldn't see. I squeezed it until he stopped squeezing back. When Billy died, the sun was going down. I was alone. Just me and the body. And the ghost across the valley. I knew where he was now. Roughly, that shot gave me a sector. He was in the banyan trees, maybe 600 yards out. Uphill, he had the high ground. He had the advantage. He knew I was there, but he couldn't see me yet. "Day 3, Silas said. The rain started, a monsoon. It washed the blood away. It cooled the air. But it made the optics foggy. It made the world gray. I knew this was it. The architect would be moving. He'd think the rain covered him. I had to be faster. I did something stupid, something suicide grade. I knew I couldn't spot him in the dense foliage. He was too well camouflaged. I needed him to shoot. I needed a muzzle flash, but I didn't have a helmet to put on a stick. I didn't have a decoy. All I had was me." Silas touched the patch. "I used the scope, the Unertl 8-power scope on my rifle. It has a big glass lens. If the sun hits it right, or if the light catches it, it glints. It's a beacon. A sniper's worst nightmare is scope glint. But that day, I wanted it. I shifted my rifle. I angled the glass up, just a fraction, trying to catch the gray light of the sky. I was inviting him to kill me. I stared through that tube. I saw the leaves. I saw the rain. And then I saw it. A ripple in the bushes. A shape that wasn't a branch. It was him. He had seen my glint. He was lining up. "Now here is the math," Silas said, leaning back into the shadows. "A bullet travels at 2,600 feet per second. At 600 yards, that's a flight time of less than a second. But before the bullet flies, the brain has to decide. The finger has to squeeze. The hammer has to fall. It takes time, milliseconds, but time." I saw his muzzle flash. A tiny flower of fire in the dark green. He took the bait. He fired. In that moment, I didn't duck. I didn't close my eyes. Because if I ducked, I lost the target. If I flinched, I missed. I knew his bullet was in the air. I knew it was coming for my eye. I had to trust that my bullet would get there too. I squeezed the trigger. My rifle bucked. Crack. A split second later, smash. Silas mimed an explosion near his face. His bullet hit my scope. Dead center, it shattered the glass. It traveled down the tube of the scope, losing energy, shredding metal and glass, and it exited the eyepiece, right into my face. The recruits gasped. One of them looked away, sickened. It felt like getting hit by a freight train. My head snapped back. The world went red. I was blind. I was screaming. I fell back into the mud, clawing at my face. I thought I was dead. I wished I was dead. I lay there for an hour, waiting for the finishing shot, waiting for him to come verify the kill, but he didn't come. The jungle was silent. No birds, no bugs, just the rain washing the blood out of my empty socket. When the patrol finally found me, they dragged me out. They went up the hill to check the sector I had fired at. They found him, the architect. Silas paused. The lightning flashed again. He was slumped over his rifle. He had a hole right through his scope. My bullet had done the exact same thing his did. It went through his glass. But his scope was shorter. My bullet didn't stop. It went through the tube and into his brain. He was dead before he heard the sound of my gun. I traded an eye for a life, Silas whispered. I traded a piece of myself to stop a monster, and every time I look in the mirror, every time I tie this patch on, I see Billy dying in the dirt. I see the muzzle flash, and I ask myself if it was worth it. The old man stood up slowly. The chair creaked. You asked about the patch, Private Jacobs. This patch isn't a trophy. It's a reminder. It's a reminder that in war, you don't win. You just survive. You survive by being willing to take the hit that the other guy won't. You survive by holding your ground when every instinct in your body is screaming at you to run. He walked over to Jacobs's bunk. He looked down at the young recruit. Jacobs looked terrified, humbled, and incredibly young. You boys want to be soldiers, Silas said softly. Soldiers pay bills with their bodies. Are you ready to pay? Are you ready to sit in the rain for 3 days and watch your best friend die? Are you ready to let a bullet hit you just so you can land one of your own? Jacobs swallowed hard. I don't know, Silas. Good answer, Silas nodded. Because if you said yes, I'd call you a liar. Silas walked to the door of the barracks. He opened it, letting the cool, wet air flood the stuffy room. The sound of the rain was loud, cleansing. Get some sleep, Silas said, his silhouette framed against the storm. Tomorrow we train on evasion, and nobody makes a sound. He closed the door. The barracks remained dark. For a long time no one spoke, no one moved. The bravado, the jokes, the toughness, it had all evaporated. All that was left was the heavy, suffocating weight of the truth. Jacobs lay on his back, staring at the ceiling, listening to the rain. He touched his own eye, gently, thankful for the sight, thankful for the dark, thankful for the old man who walked the halls. They didn't look at Silas as a janitor or a cripple anymore. When he walked in the next morning, the room didn't just stand to attention because of protocol. They stood because they were in the presence of a giant, a man who had looked death in the eye and didn't blink. The lesson of Hill 484 wasn't about shooting. It was about resolve. It was about the terrible, beautiful price of duty. And it was a story that would keep those boys alive when their own storms came. Real heroes don't brag. They don't wear their stories on their sleeves. They wear them in their silence. They carry the weight so we don't have to. If this story left you silent, if you felt the chill of that jungle rain, hit the subscribe button. Share this with someone who needs to understand that freedom isn't free. It's paid for in installments of blood, sweat, and sight. Never ask a veteran about their scars unless you're ready to hear the answer. And always, always remember the ones who didn't come back.